We're asking the top 10 questions asked at interview according to ChatGPT, hopefully within the bounds of the Great Art Egg Timer, which is, I think we thought was 2.5 minutes. Now we realise it's about 4 or possibly 15, depending on how passionate we get about the subject. So, question 2, flip away. Question 2, what are your strengths and weaknesses?
That one is hard as well. I understand why they're asking it. I also realized that this is an interview environment. Of course, you're going to bullshit your way through it. So, what are your strengths? I'm fucking awesome. What are your weaknesses? None. I'm too good. I'm too good for you. I find it's a hard one.
This is a problem. It's an affinity bias where you go for people who speak like you and talk like you and think like you prefer them. And I think almost you can't win on this one unless someone has that connection with you anyway. Because
which they won't have. Question number 2.
If you go for the classic corny interview of my strength is maybe I care too much. My weakness. My weakness. Maybe I'm just too intelligent and I make other people feel sad. I don't know.
That wouldn't be any of my picks.
That response, basically, I don't know, what do you do? My weakness, I'm awful at my job. I don't really care about it. I just come for the salary and that's all I want. That wouldn't get you the job.
No, but that would be honest.
Unless the person you happen to speak to thinks that's a brilliant response. And so it's so dependent on
it is, and it's a very subjective as well.
Today.
Because it would be assuming that you're the person doing your one-to-one and you are playing both roles in that process, so you know exactly which are your strengths and your weaknesses, and you can talk about them objectively. I'm like, no, you can't.
It's really difficult as well because...
And it completely depends as well on your work environment and some work scenarios. Something that might be a strength would be if you change office, suddenly become a weakness.
I think it's a weak question because it's a bit too open as to what the intent is. So if what you really want to understand is can someone work comfortably by themselves and that's what they enjoy and what they'd rather do, just ask that. Don't say, oh, what are your strengths? I'm hoping at some point you're going to say, I like working alone. It's kind of like you're better off just saying, what kind of environment do you work in best in? Whatever.
I'd like to expand on what I was saying. Like, when I was working in Germany, being able to clearly state how things are, however fucked up they are, is a strength and is actually expected. You should be able to say when something doesn't work, and if the blame has to rightly be put on something or someone, you should be able to say so. And I don't mean in a witch hunting kind of way. If you do that in the UK, you're evil. It's not accepted. It's culturally wrong. But that's part of the communication model that is necessary as well.
It's a really valid point about expectations of business culture. Because I've interviewed a few people recently who've come from other parts of the world and how businesses and companies operate there. And not only who have come from, but maybe also reside. Because I interview people who maybe still live in the States or still live in India and they have no intentions of moving. That's where they work from. And therefore, your expectations of what your answer to that is are wildly different. And again, therefore, what does it bring? I think from an interviewing point of view, you're better asking a more focused question about the things you care about. What do I want out of the job?
Yeah.
What do I need them to be able to do? And then ask about that.
And give also very, very clear scenario. Because some interviewers realise that question is too vague. And they try to narrow it down, but it would be like trying to see how you react if someone makes an invalid suggestion, for example. But I had people just asking, so I'm your boss and I give an idea that is wrong, that is completely wrong. How do you react? And when I was trying to ask questions to figure out, okay, what's the context? What kind of idea are you giving me? Is it to help on a project? In which case, I don't fucking need your help because that's what you hired me to do. Or are you asking about Christmas decoration? In which case, I really don't care. Put whatever you want on your fucking desk.
But I think,
And they wouldn't give a clear answer to that. It remained vague. So they knew what they wanted me to talk
they're trying
about,
to lead you to a specific answer.
but without giving me any clear boundaries as to framing my answer, because anybody would react differently depending on those situations.
And again, that comes back to, and we're kind of massively out of time, but it comes
Doesn't
back
matter.
to some of the points we've been talking about before around neurodiversity. How does that help? That's not a great question. You want something more useful. And also more targeted questions. And also, realistically, in an interview, if you say to someone, I'm your boss, I do this, I make a bad decision, what are you going to do? You say, oh, I respectfully challenge it. Oh, fantastic, tick, tick. In reality, you probably don't.
That's not what I said, actually, but she wouldn't take it. I didn't insult her.
No,
I just said,
mean
I
in
understand.
general, people might answer that, and therefore, if it's a kind of question where you can blag your way through it easily, there's no point asking it.
Yeah, well, they couldn't ask me
mind.
that because I can't blag my way out of anything. But what I was asking her was like, I try to understand why you made that suggestion. Like, if it's someone trying to solve a data analytics problem, coming with her lack of knowledge, but giving me a suggestion that I understand what she's trying to achieve with it, I can work with that. I can ignore the actual resolutions she suggests, but go in the right direction if it's what she means. But she genuinely wouldn't answer anything. So I just thought, can I rate the interviewers as well? Is it just you rating the interviewee? Can I also send you something going, I would not work with you, you're fucking thick? Does it work?
I think that's a fair takeaway from an interview. But I think we've answered that question there.
Yeah, but I'd like also to come back to what you were saying about addressing neurodiversity. Yeah. It's not just that I cannot accept the fact that there is a world in which neuroboring people get the vaguest of questions asked and they're like, oh, I completely know what you mean. I'm just, no, do you have a crystal ball? Do you know what they mean? It wasn't explained at all. And I don't think it's just neurodiversity, it's just being able to ask something clearly and in a targeted way, which is essentially the way you should communicate in an office. If you're not even able to do that with someone who you want to bring into your office, maybe you just shouldn't be doing the interview at all. Reconsider your life choices. Work in a garden alone. Don't work with people, because it's that thing where they still keep on going about neurodiverse people cannot communicate, which is completely wrong. They can communicate at exactly the same level as anyone else. It's just anyone else, apparently, you say one word and they can read into your mind because there's only one way of thinking, as they want to make us believe. In a neurodiverse world, you take more diversity into account. And just like, you haven't given me enough information for me to truly understand what you mean, the context in which it has to be applied. And that I find is an accurate statement.
I think that's...
I don't think it's...
I think that applies...
find it unfair to say it's just neurodiversity.
No, I agree. I think you're right. I think that applies to everybody, because everyone will give different, interesting and unique answers, but you need to give them the opportunity and the right kind of context. You need
to give them the right question in the right phrasing. You need to convey not even the meaning, but more the, here is my black hole, and this is the shape of my black hole. I want you to put your answer in there. And if they're unable to give you the shape of it, I find it is a little bit unfair to expect an answer.
But I've had lots of interviews like that where the classic kind of interview in a tech world, which is the space I operate in, where you have like, particularly remote, 3 people on screen turn up. They've all got completely diverse backgrounds and in technical backgrounds and interests in being there. Most of them probably don't want to be there, and they've just got a list of questions, very niche with very specific answers. And it's like, tell me about this thing, and you say something, and they're like, you can feel they're trying to pull and lead you towards one specific
they
thing
have the list of keywords you
and then
need
they go
to
tick
mention.
good, you get it, or cross no you didn't, next one, and
Yeah.
it's useless generally.
In the digital marketing world, it feels a bit like that. When you go through different rounds of interviews, you feel like everyone has got a set of keywords, and they ask you questions expecting you to say one of those keywords so they can tick them off the list. Or sometimes they go even more openly, like, define that keyword for me. Like, do you know about SEO? Do we really? I mean, it's only been 15 years. Do we really know about SEO? I fucking wonder. So it's, again, not a way of doing interview properly, but I don't even remember why we went there. Probably into being getting targeted answers.
Thinking one of our weaknesses is probably sticking to the
Consistentness.
point. So I think that's question 2.
This is the egg timer's fault, I would say.
I blame the egg timer. It's great art.
It's the egg.